Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to see you again.
You too. We're gonna have fun today.
Yes, we are. I'm really excited for this one.
Yep. Mr. Funny Man.
Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Well, we are going to go ahead and introduce George Campbell. So we're going to go ahead and bring him out. So here we go.
The man himself.
George.
Hi there. It's good to see both of you, one of whom I've seen more recently.
What?
I was going to say, what a coincidence that you both have the same last name.
Okay. So I married the man.
Yeah.
It figures I'd marry a speaker, right?
I mean, that's too perfect. It's fitting. I love it.
Well, we met what was it, George? 20 something years ago.
Easy.
When he was doing a little program called Joe Malarkey, worst motivational speaker in America.
I love that.
We booked it for all our biggest clients. It was hilarious. And then after 20 years of doing that show, 20-ish,
Yeah.
Malarkey left the building.
Yeah. It was great. It was a great training ground. I mean, I did 10 years of stand-up before I did Malarkey, and Malarkey was basically stand-up in a much better suit. And the advantage it gave me was great because, number one, you're funny, which is so handy on stage. That's a great thing. In fact, now that I'm doing content, people come up to me and say, well, that was way more enjoyable than we thought it was going to be, which makes me wonder what their expectations were. And then but the biggest thing is what comedy trains you to do is it allows you to see connections, make connections and associations that other people don't see. And so when I was kind of ready to move off the Malarkey train, I found a subject that fascinated me, which was consistency. And then as I began to study and read and research, I started to see these points that popped up. And I'm like, wait a second, the Pareto 80-20 thing, that totally connects with this marshmallow study over here. And that makes sense. And so anyway, I made these connections that allowed me to really kind of dig deeply into the question that I wanted to solve on an intellectual level, and I wanted to solve it on a personal level. And that was, why is consistency, we all know it's important. Why is it so challenging for us to remain consistent?
And I feel like that is the perfect timing to talk about this today. We're closing up the year. We're coming into a new year. I think everyone always really struggles with the idea of New Year's resolutions. How do we stay consistent through a year? How do we develop a habit? So perfect timing.
Yeah. When I think of New Year's resolutions, I always think of that classic Seinfeld sitcom scene where he's going to pick up his rental car and the car company is giving his car away. And he's like, you know how to make a reservation. You don't know how to hold a reservation. And I feel like that's the way we approach New Year's resolutions. We know how to make resolutions. We just don't know how to keep resolutions. And it is a resolution is nothing but you're making a promise or a commitment to yourself that this is what I'm going to do ongoing, which is by definition consistency. And it's funny because I've spent years studying this, and then I had someone actually take what was like 5 years of research on my part. And
let's tell them where it happened.
Okay.
We were actually in church.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah. Chris loves to go to church. Mine is court ordered. Well, they just felt it would be better.
You're there. That's all that matters.
I am there. And we've got an unbelievably great pastor. And he said, I'm gonna talk to you today about consistency. And I'm like, oh yeah, tell me something I don't know. And then he proceeded to do just that. But he took all this research and he summed it all up in 8 words. And he said, successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. And I thought that is so profound. Number one, it ties success and consistency together. I mean, they are bonded together. And the other thing is that it brings the question, the mystery of this, which is, I mean, if you ask people, everybody's going to say, yeah, I would prefer to be successful.
Mm.
We all want to be successful. And yet over a relatively short period of time, what we see is all those people that want to be successful and know that they have to be consistent. What we see is their behavior defaults back to occasional.
Right.
And that was the mystery of this.
Incredibly frustrating if you're in one of those people.
Mhm.
So I remember last year, you made a big deal about February. I mean, when I say a big deal, like huge deal about February 8th,
Mm.
which apparently is the day when most people's resolutions go off the cliff.
Yeah.
And they're done. They quit. Is that right?
Yeah. Virtually everybody's resolution will be done by February 8th. And I got to tell you, when I first found this out, I thought February 8th, that's not bad, because making it out of January would be great. But that's when virtually everyone is quit. Fact is, this is a tip. If your New Year's resolution is going to be, I'm going to get in shape this year, don't start it till February 9th, because the gym will be so much less crowded. You'll thank me for it. You really will.
I still do. I want to argue this because it just seems so ridiculous that there's an actual date that giant numbers of people quit. But I do know it's true that most people, 80% actually, don't follow through their New Year's resolutions. But somebody answer the question, why is it so hard?
Mm.
I mean, it's just one of those things we walk by, like, like it's just a thing. We know that it's hard, but why is it so hard?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, part of it has been the way we viewed it, for forever. And I've experienced this myself, is we experience this when we commit to do something and then we don't follow through. There's this shame and blame because it feels, we've been told it's basically a character flaw. It's a lack of willpower. You just don't care enough. You're lazy. And we've heard all these pejoratives that it's not the explanation at all.
Mm.
We don't, it is not a lack of character issue. It is literally an issue of the way our brain is wired. I mean, 80% of us, our brain is wired differently than the 20% of us. That's where basically the basis of the whole Pareto 80-20 thing comes into application with people. So the way I came to understand this was one of the little points that I connected, was in the late 1960s, early 1970s, there was a research program down at Stanford. And what they did is they gathered together 300 5-year-olds, which right there, I don't know if there's a Nobel Prize for patience, but man, let's give it to that guy. And so, and what they did is they took the kids one by one into a room at a table, and on the table they set a marshmallow.
Mm.
And they said, listen, that marshmallow is yours to eat. However, we're going to leave. And when I come back, if that marshmallow is still there, you get a second marshmallow. And then the researcher would leave. And so any guesses on how many kids ate the marshmallow percentage-wise? I see
80%.
80%. It's always 80-20. It's insane.
Wow.
That's nuts.
So
everybody knows this part of the story.
Right.
Wait till you hear the rest of it.
So that was the initial test, and then they thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny to kind of follow up on these kids and see what they if that simple decision about whether or not to eat the marshmallow now or delay gratification, get a second one, what has any implications in their lives? And so what they found was in their mid-teenage years, the kids who did not eat the marshmallow, the 20%, had higher SAT scores, higher GPAs. And then midlife, they check in again, and the 20% had more educational attainment, more professional advancement. According to body mass index, they were healthier, and they were divorced less. And it's funny, this is the point that I kind of heard about this story, because I'm obviously I spoke professionally for years, and I'd be on programs with other speakers, and I would hear people talk about this, and they would mention this marshmallow test, and they would, in the conclusion that they drew from it was, well, we need to learn to delay gratification. And I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, how do we do that? So then the breakthrough came 2011, and because now medical technology and computing power have kind of hit this this place where we can look inside a real live human brain in real time. And so they brought back the test subjects one more time. They're now in their 50s, and they put them in a functional MRI machine. And a technician could look at the activity level in one of two areas of the brain and tell you with 100% accuracy whether or not that person did or did not eat the marshmallow.
Isn't that crazy?
Is insane.
Yeah, so by age 5 and probably before then, we are hardwired for the desire for instant gratification or the ability to delay gratification. And for our purposes, the ability to delay gratification and consistency are one and the same. It's the same neural network.
So how do we get hardwired so quickly? Like, what happens that 0 to 5 range that determines this?
No idea. I was paying no attention personally. I was really big with Tonka trucks then. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it has a genetic component.
And maybe we come into this world hardwired.
Yeah,
Our brains are,
yeah.
I don't know either, but
wow.
So I mean,
change it?
Yeah, that's the thing. So here's the good news. We got good news, bad news thing here. Good news. Neuroplasticity is our friend. Neuroplasticity is literally the way that we can rewire our brains. And there are stories of neuroplasticity that absolutely blow my mind. The brain's capacity to completely rechange the wiring. That's the good news. The bad news is the process that we use to rewire the brain is repetitions of an action or activity over a long span of time. And the other word that we have for repetitions of an activity over a long period of time is called consistency. So basically what we're asking of people is we're saying, well, the only thing that you need to do to be consistent is to already be consistent. And I mean, that's, I was like, oh, okay, so you're saying I need to possess the quality I lack in order to get the quality that I need.
And thus, no wonder there's an 80% failure rate.
Exactly. It's like no win. So here's the challenge. As long as we have to do a dramatic reframe. And this is what the book that I just came out with is all about, this reframing the way we view consistency. If we look at consistency, all right, let me give you an example. So when I speak, a lot of times I will do a pre-event survey with the attendees just to kind of take their temperature and see where they are on consistency now. What are their beliefs that they hold? And what I found, 2 questions I would always ask: do you consider consistency either easy or difficult? 80%, no shocker there, said that it's difficult. And 95%, when I asked the question, do you think it's something that happens quickly or it takes a long time? 95% say, yeah, it takes a long time. So think about this. We have defined consistency as something that is difficult and delayed. And that the fMRI shows that 80% of us are making decisions out of a part of our brain that wants easy and instant. And as long as we define consistency as difficult and delayed, and the part of the brain that's actually going to make the decision whether or not we go and do the thing we're going to do wants easy and instant, there is going to be a struggle. And you can brute force your way through that for a little bit. And that's the reason why we have February 8th. I mean, we start out the new year with excitement and commitment and motivation. But there's going to come a day, if you're fighting that definition for a period of time, there's going to come a day where you're asking yourself, okay, are we going to do it today? And the answer is going to be no. And you look up and it's February 8th. So we have to reframe the way we see consistency so that we can sell it to that part of the brain that's actually going to make the decision, so that we can sell it to that part of the brain enough times that we can actually rewire the brain to where it's going to go to a different part of the brain. When I went through a time where I kind of testing out this whole thing, and I put together 531 straight workouts, never missed a day. And there came a time about 8 months in where I knew I had I'd rewired my brain, because the question I woke up with was no longer, am I going to work out? The question was, what workout am I going to do? And those are 2 completely separate.
And this was kind of a first for you.
Oh my God, yes. I'd never done anything that consistently. It was insane. It was a year and a half. And that was what caused me to embark on this journey. So the reframe that we have to do is we have to take something that we perceive as difficult and delayed and turn it into easy and instant. So the easy part of it is actually pretty easy. Now, I hope I'm not saying that. I should ask you this before, Channing. I don't know if it's too late now. You're training to run a marathon, right?
Yes.
So the first day, did you run 26 miles?
No.
No, that would be crazy. So that is difficult. So what we do instead is we can make it easy through a process called neuroscience. They call it micro slicing, where we basically just take this big, awful, unbelievably onerous project and we micro slice it down into a place that we can take that first step that feels easy. I can't run 26 miles, but I might be able to run a mile, or I might be able to run around the block, or I might be able to do whatever the first step is to start. And so we want to micro slice that down until we hit something that is the brain processes as, well, that's easy. I can do that. So we reframe easy. And then delayed is really fascinating, because the challenge we have with consistency is we only observe it in retrospect. We only see it in the past. Right. When we look back and go, golly, I worked out 531 straight days. That was really consistent. But the reality is consistency happens in the instant, or it doesn't happen at all. And so the analogy I use is, if you walk by an empty lot, and there's a brick laying there, you don't even notice it. Doesn't even register. Walk by, and then the next time there's 2 bricks end to end. Again, you don't even notice it. 3, 4, 5, 10. But at some point in time, you're going to walk by there and you're going to go, oh, look at that. Somebody's building a fence. So then the question becomes, was it the last brick that made it the fence? Or was it the first brick? When you built that wall, was it the last brick or the first brick? And the reality is, this isn't a question about like the chicken and egg, which came first. No. That first brick, if that first brick doesn't happen, there is no wall. So the brick is not in the wall is in the brick. And that's the way we need to view consistency. The very first day I worked out, I was consistent. I didn't need an accumulation of days. I knew that I did what I needed to do. I was consistent.
And I won that day.
I won the day. And more importantly, I fed that part of my brain that wants instant gratification. Because I wasn't trying to get to a certain weight. I wasn't trying to get to a certain look or fit into certain pants. I wasn't using any of those external things that we use to measure. No. I was measuring, did I win today? And the way I worked out 531 straight days is because I never worked out tomorrow, ever. I would have people say, well, George, you're going to work out tomorrow? And I would say, no. Because in 531 straight days, I never worked out tomorrow. I just worked out today. And that became easy and instant. And that's how you win. That's how you reframe this, so that you're not fighting yourself every single day. No. I'm just going to lean into what the part of my brain that I'm going to understand, the way I'm going to sell to this part of the brain, and we're going to make it easy and instant.
It's fascinating. I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but in our family, we've had some history of addiction. And it was fascinating because I went to family camp and the whole thing to learn more about, what can I do on the flip side to help and understand it. And I mean, what he's talking about is exactly this neuroplasticity, what they teach addicts, and the ones who get it and who learn to just win the day are the ones who build new neural pathways and they're always going to be addicts, but become healthy adults. And when I was able to look at the 5 years of George talking about this and learning it, and just over and over and over all the different lessons about it, and then I experienced that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really fascinating stuff, because we're not those people who are born or become 20%ers, it's a
Mhm.
whole different thing for them. And we'll talk about that, or you can read more about it in the book. I mean, they certainly still have to parent an 80%er or lead 80%ers on their team, or, whatever. It's
Well, and then also is that very few people are pure 20% or pure 80%.
well, that's true too. Oh,
Mhm.
tell them the Oprah story.
Yeah, I mean, Oprah is the example that I always use. Oprah is a class in the area of business. My God, 20%? She's 0.0002%.
Off the charts.
Yeah, but we have also, and I'm not being judgmental or shaming, but she made very public her struggle with gaining mastery over her body and getting healthy and getting, thinner and so and you think about it, she had every possible advantage a person can have. I mean, she can have the private chef, she can have the personal trainer, she could pay somebody $1,000 an hour just to follow her around and slap food out of her mouth. So and yet this was still a struggle for her. And this was perfectly summed up when she decided she was going to do Weight Watchers. Before she announced she was doing Weight Watchers, you know what she did? She bought Weight Watchers stock. That's business Oprah. She knew that as soon as she announced that she was going to do this, the stock was going to go through the roof, and it did. I think she ended up clearing $6 million on that stock purchase, which has got to be insider trading, although it's really inside because it's just her. But we've seen. It was fascinating. She signed up for Weight Watchers, and then we didn't see much of her for quite a few years there, 3 or 4 years there. And then the next time that I saw her, that she was on a red carpet at an award show, and she had lost a ton of weight. And you're thinking, you go, girl. And then she was asked about it, and she said, I got to be honest with you, I'm taking Ozempic.
Yeah,
she said, because what I came to understand was my issue was not a willpower issue. I had a brain issue. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of her brain that she makes business decisions with, was not at all involved with the decision about, do I eat, do I not, do I eat this, do I not eat this, do I work out, do I not work out? Completely separate issue.
Well, let me change gears for a second here. Just so our listeners, particularly ones that are buyers, there's no category for consistency. People don't call us up and say, hey, do you have a speaker who speaks on consistency?
Yeah.
Peak performance, sales. I mean, there are places this fits. And obviously, like most things, there are a lot of topics that come and go. And I have to believe that this one may become more popular because it is gigantic once we start talking about something like belonging, or when Brene Brown started talking about shame. I mean, that's just how it happens. It's relevant, it's going to stick. So this is a topic that's really going to work for anybody, but I think it particularly works for sales groups. Yeah. So keep that in mind. For those who want to see those numbers change, that 80-20, which by the way, never do. So this is a way to actually figure out how to make that happen. And for those groups, I also suggest a separate program for the leaders to teach the leaders how to lead the 80%. Because traditionally it's, if you've ever sat in one of those programs, they teach leadership from a perspective of how they want to be led, which doesn't work for the 80%. There's a reason those numbers don't change.
Can I jump in here just a second?
Yeah.
It's fascinating because the way, and again, I was around the events. Well, we all were around the events industry for so long. The people that get on stage to talk to the group, by the process that allows them to get on stage, they're all 20%ers. That's how they got there. They're either a leader in their business, in their industry, or they've written a book. Those are all 20% activities.
Yeah.
So the tendency is, the trap is, well, just do what I did. You just do what I did. And you see this with the top sales guy that gets promoted up into the sales management position. And he does great handling the people that are exactly like him. And the other people, it's just so much frustration. And I've talked to sales leaders about this. Why won't they simply do what I did? And I'm like, because they're not wired the way you're wired.
So George, how do you, in those circumstances, like how would you recommend that maybe 20% leader needs to lead their, people that are thinking and acting differently than them?
Well, I mean, the first step is to understand they're literally making a decision in a different part of the brain than you are.
Mm-hmm.
I use the example of the 20% person that wants to lose a little bit of weight, realizes they go into the office and they go into the break room and there's donuts sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And they can look at that from a prefrontal cortex activity of, are those donuts going to get me closer to or further away from what I actually want?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, they fill up their cup of coffee and they go back to their office and they write that long overdue, don't bring any more donuts to the office memo. But for me, if I'm in the same position, because I'm a card carrying member of the 80%. And if I think, hey, I could stand to lose a couple pounds, I walk into there and I'm thinking, donuts, because the part of the brain that is activated for me is a much more primal part of the brain called the ventral striatum. And it makes decisions based on three things. Is it easy? Is it safe? Is it pleasurable? I call it the ESP filter. And you look at a donut, is a donut easy? My God, you can pick it up with one finger. Super easy. Is it safe? I've never cut myself on a donut. Is it pleasurable? Have you had a donut? And so what we have two people who want exactly the same thing, faced with exactly the same decision, the same situation, and they make diametrically opposite choices. And so that is, and it doesn't matter. And that's the donut example, but it could be the sales example. We're going to offer the incentive trip, and everybody should go. But they can tell you, when they do those trips, they know they could go ahead and buy the plane tickets that day because they know who's going on the trip.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So the first step is just understanding that there is a difference, and then the second step is, okay, let's accommodate that difference. Let's make this easy. Let's make this instant. And, and there's a lot of ways to do that.
Well, we also talk about the fact that you've taught me this, that 20%ers aren't necessarily more well-educated. They're not smarter. They're not, all those things the same, still have these decisions made in entirely different part of the brain.
Yep.
Wow. So it's, the 80% feels a lot of shame around this, I think. And probably starts telling themselves, wrong, I can't, not as good at, whatever. And that's equally important. And I would imagine there's a lot of 20%er executives who come home to their family and are trying to parent a child who is entirely different than them. We have that in our family. And it's like, there's so much frustration around this in so many ways. And once you learn it and understand it and see it, you realize what a tremendous difference this can make. I got to go back because we talked about corporate and sales groups, how helpful this is. And we have studies on it that have been off the charts, really great feedback from CEOs. But the other market that really surprised us that George, I think, is tremendously excited about is education, which I've never been in, and neither have you, really.
No, I've never done education, that sector of audiences. And then, I was like, but I was thinking one day, I was like, as I got into this, I thought, why did nobody tell me this when I was a kid? And then I thought, George, why are you not telling kids this? So we just begun to explore this. Last month I did an event for principals and teachers and superintendents. It was so much fun and so interesting. And
that's some incredible feedback, which tells us we need to do more of this, both for the teachers, administrators, and also the students.
The students,
Yeah. Which, by the way, I just have to mention, the kids make me think of the fun stuff. So one of the cool things about this program is it really lends itself to tools and what I like to call the fun stuff. So obviously there's the book that's already out there on Amazon, Instantly Consistent.
Love it.
George, you can talk about the platform real quick.
Yeah,
I do.
We've searched for a platform to support this, and we finally found one. Maybe we can put a link in when this goes out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's called the Chain Gangsters, and it is a place, is a community where people who want to, but backtrack just for a second. Consistency is not a message that you can deliver once and walk away. That's what we've done. So what this platform allows me to do is to deliver that message literally on a daily basis and remind people that this is the day. This is what we're doing. And the other thing is it allows us to form what we call little chain gangs, which are peer-to-peer support and accountability circles, 3 to 5 people. And it's just a matter of, it's basically a group text. You can do it on your phone on the platform. And say, hey, I did my thing today. I did my activity today. And then everybody has a chance to congratulate you. And so the beautiful thing is sometimes we fail at consistency just because we forget. Oh, I was going to do that today. Well, this doesn't allow you to forget, because you're going to get 5 or 6 pings, intermittent, unexpected during the day, that remind you that, hey, you know what? One of my teammates, one of my chain gang just did their thing. You can't forget. So we did a case study on this, and it was astounding how effective this was. People who were at a 5 to 10% consistency rate at whatever activity it was that they were interested in. And immediately it shot to 84%.
Yeah.
I really resonate with that. I myself, like running this marathon, I always thought that was going to be something impossible for me. And I wanted to do it because it felt impossible. But I know the reason I was able to stay consistent with it is because I am running it with a group of people, and we have a text thread, and we're checking in with each other, and we're helping each other and supporting one another. And I know that's a huge reason. They're my gang. They're my crew.
Well, there's a reason why people who go to the gym, the chances of you going to the gym just skyrocket if you have a gym buddy. Somebody's expecting you to be there. And that's what this provides, is a really convenient platform for people to connect and support. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
So George, the OG,
I'm the original.
pops in, and there'll be little videos and him showing up in person and whatever on the platform, which is also very cool. Then there's the chain letter, which is the monthly newsletter. And do you have your chain bracelet on?
I do. I don't know if you can see it.
So
love it.
Yeah, it's just a little reminder. On one side, it's two. I can't.
Yeah, we'll see it.
It's a little tiny reminder that reminds you either, hey, do your activity. Today's the day. And then when you're done, you flip it and it says, way to go. And it says, it's a constant reminder either to take action or celebrate the fact that feed that instant consistency, feed that instant desire for instant gratification, and celebrate that. Make it feel good so that you want to come back the next day.
So the one last thing that will be coming in 2025, since we mentioned education, is there's going to be a leader's guide for teachers and a workbook for students. I think, whether a student gets a hold of this on their own, or whether it's a classroom thing, which is more likely, we'll have tools ready for that. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, George, this has been amazing. You've made me think about a lot of things differently in a unique way, which I love. And just thank you so much. If you could sum it up for listeners, everything you talked about, that'd be awesome.
So let me take us back to the marshmallow test for a second, because when I do this for audiences, I always ask them, what would you have done? Get yourself back in that little 5-year-old self. And then I like to ask, let's look at it a different way. Imagine yourself today, and you have a child or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew. They're 5 years old. They're having a chance to do this same test. And you go there with them, and you see them go in the room and set at a table, a little marshmallow in front. And you see the guy come out of the room. You're peeking around the corner, and you're so excited. And you're so proud of them, because there's like a minute and a half. They're rocking it. And then at the 2-minute mark, you see that little hand. a little hand, go out and grab your marshmallow and eat it. And your heart would just drop because you know what this means. And you would walk in and get on one knee and look into that precious little face and you say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
You ate the marshmallow. This is about as good as life is going to get for you. It's not your fault, honey. It's not your fault. It's just the way you are. Now, the question is, would anybody ever say that to a 5-year-old child? No. But I tell you exactly who we will say it to all day long. We'll say it to ourselves. It's just the way I am. I've always been this way. People don't change. And I'm asking you this right now. If you would not say it to a 5-year-old child, stop saying it to yourself because it's not true. We absolutely can change.
Amen.
Change one day at a time. And today is that day.
Love that. That's awesome. And you cracked me up along the way. Well, George, you're hilarious and so wise. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. And this is the only time I get to see my wife.
Yeah. He's not allowed downstairs.
No, it's a zoning thing. I don't know what happened.
Just be a video. That's hilarious. You are so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, George.
Well, we'll see you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
okay. Well, that was a little weird and really awesome.
I loved that. I don't think I've laughed so hard.
I'm not kidding. He's right upstairs, which is, I think this is how we talk now. Yeah.
Just a little Zoom or a stream.
Exactly.
I love
Well,
it.
before we go, we should really announce what's happening in January. What I'm very excited about. Behind the Mic in January, date to be determined, but coming very soon. We're having Lindsay McInerney. She's an internet, self-proclaimed, I should add, internet nerd and tech futurist, founder of Next Big Thing. My favorite part of her is that she loves to demystify AI and the next internet, which I'm just like, what?
Yes. I can't wait to ask her all those questions. And I'm really excited for us to talk about her idea on the future of imagination and creativity. Yes. That's going to be amazing. So excited for that. George was the perfect one to kick us off in the new year. And then Lindsay will take us to where does she think it's going?
Yeah. Don't wait until January 1st to think about what your resolutions are going to be and get some help this time around. It really works.
And don't stop on February 8th.
No, please don't. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kris, as always, so good to see you.
You too.
It's time.
Bye.